Hey coconuts, today in TFC Stock Geek Up, we're going to finally explore a company that's not listed in the US. They're listed in Hong Kong. It's a Singapore company and it's synonymous with gaming. By now, you should know what I'm saying. They have a cult-like following and consistently push into new tech spaces over the years. While I believe some of their attempts could have gone even further to try to entrench themselves to become bigger platform and technology ecosystem provider, they have a very strong brand, right? Synonymous with gaming and all these people buying up their stuff. Yeah, my goodness, right? It is a thing, and they basically bought up the whole space, right? So very, very powerful company and very strong in terms of their brand. Interesting company, and I hope the founder, if you're listening, Min Liang, I hope you can come on the show and share with us more. What do you see your company into the future, right? Joining me today to geek out on Razer is Thomas, to your in-house stock and tech geek. And for all of you that don't yet know, Razer started out selling gaming mouse, right? Those kind of very complicated gaming mices, and people use it really just for some sort of advantage in gaming. I'm not a gamer, but I know there's like all these weird keys, right? And people use it to get themselves that little bit faster compared to their, competitors. But they've come so far. They have all sorts of lines these days, right? For laptops, desktop, keyboards, even chairs, and all that jazz, right? So a lot of new things. I think one of the questions that we try to understand, in our discussion today is, can they jump beyond gaming as a company, right? Can they go beyond it? Or is their brand so strong that they're locked in? And do they really need to do that, right? So I think for all that and more, keep listening. And yeah, Min Liang must come on the show and talk, okay? So for your reference sake, this episode was recorded on the 14th of August 2021. Our discussion today is solely for education and entertainment purposes only. It does not serve as any form of advice or recommendations. Thank you for loving what we do and empowering us financially to do more for you. If you want to continue this discussion, join our Telegram group, and yeah, let's keep this going. Let's geek out. Finally out of the US, we spent a lot of time talking about a lot of US companies, and I think rightfully so, since Thomas is very focused on the tech space, right? And a lot of the innovation at this moment in time is still in the tech space. So yeah, we need to clap hand. Do we need to clap hand? Okay lah, clap lah. Okay, so let me breathe. Okay, finally, we're out of the US. Okay.
Yeah.
we spent a lot of time in the US. I think primarily because we are very tech focused, and we just spend so much time talking about all the innovation there, right? Primarily, I think. Do you think most of the innovation is still coming out of the US today, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I think most of the innovative products and services is actually coming out of Silicon Valley. I think just a lot of people who are daring to dream, and a lot of resources are being funneled there. So that's why you see a lot of new ideas coming out of there. Nothing stopping, say, Europe and say even for Singapore producing these kinds of new innovations. But it's basically where the money and talent goes, right? And so far, by far and large, Silicon Valley is just taking up a large sum of both of these resources. Yeah, China's coming up quick as well.
Yeah, exactly. But that does not mean that there's no other tech companies coming out. But it's just, I think, a lot of the forefront, the most innovative, fringe, interesting things are coming out of Silicon Valley. But I think China is also climbing up in a lot of these things, right?
Yep, for sure. They're pumping a lot of resources into the their own Greater Bay region. So that's going to become the Silicon Valley in let's say Asia. That's what they're trying to do. But already you can see in Shanghai especially, there's a lot of tech development that's going there. People just have really, really fast, rapid development times, even for hardware companies. So competition is extremely, extremely tough there, even more so than Silicon Valley, I think. But yeah, it's just wherever these two resources go, resources as well as for talent.
Talent and money, right? Essentially, that will bring a lot of innovation, yes. And that's the Da Wan Chu, good stuff. And today we're going to spend some time to talk about this company that I think everybody is kind of familiar, but may not have used the product and may not have studied the company, and that is Razer, right? But why Razer, and what are your preliminary thoughts of this company? It is a Singapore company listed in Hong Kong, for everybody that don't yet know. Yeah.
And they also have operations in the US. Actually, they're a bit all over the place. So about their manufacturing actually comes from the US. That being said, it's not say it's an American company. It's led by a Singaporean. So that's pretty interesting. Another thing why we want to talk about it is also this is almost like a household brand, especially for gamers, right? Everyone who games knows Razer, right? But not everyone who games uses Razer, right? But they have very high quality products according to the reviews. And there's just a lot of brand power which this company brings almost to the level of Apple, right? It's very, very cult-like. And it's interesting to talk about how they have actually gone through their different business models. So if they've tried and experimented, the recent one is like Razer Pay and Razer Card. But they are first and foremost a gaming products company and some kind of services to assist the gamers in streamlining the way that they play their games. Yeah, but first and foremost, it's a hardware company.
Yeah. Before we go into the hardware business, do you have any broad comments on the Razer Pay and Razer Card? I mean, yeah, they announced that they left, right? But what are your thoughts about it?
I think they were doing it as a very opportunistic way of tackling fintech, let's say in Singapore or Malaysia and Indonesia. And at the time, they were one of the contenders for the banking license, right? So they had to show that they were doing something, right? And in order to edge out against the rest who are probably going to do the same thing as well, they try to take the next step where, okay, let's use a bit of their hardware and a bit of their payments infrastructure, right? Show some basic prototype first and get it into production, right? So some people are already using it. They can go to MES and say that, okay, we've got something going on already. Just give the license to us. We know what we're doing. It's that kind of thing, right? At the end of the day, whether it makes sense or not for them to continue ultimately rides on whether they got that license or not, right?
Okay.
That doesn't stop them from getting other licenses in other countries, right? So they may still have banking in their sites. But what they have already been doing, what they have just announced already is that they're discounting Razer Pay and Razer Card altogether. So I don't think so. Yeah.
Is it all together like around the world, or is it just in Singapore?
Around the world.
Okay. So they've given up in the game, so they have thrown in the towel, right? And I do think a lot of people underestimate the kind of hill that they need to climb, right? When they go into a lot of these kind of parallel spaces, and there are really very dominant players in the space. So yeah, it is something to be very aware of. Yep. So shall we look into a little bit of their business model? I know they as a non-gamer myself, I know they sell very expensive hardware for gamers, right? So yeah, can you kind of walk us through? Oh, by the way, I just want to shout out that my webcam is actually from Razer. Yeah, so
wow.
the webcam is from Razer. It's quite good so far, compared to the other stuff that I tried for this price point. So I won't say that they're the most expensive, but yeah. I don't use their keyboard. I don't use their setup. Those are the main shit. All right, so yeah, walk us through, man. What is their business model? What do they do?
Well, they are really a hardware company, but meant for gamers. So you're talking about your keyboards, your mouse, your mice. You even have specialized laptops that you want to play, let's say, very high performance games on. The webcam and all that is all the peripherals that is built on this whole game and streaming trend. But originally they started out with just mice, right? So you have your special mouse, which is designed in such a way which is optimal for you to do extra clicks, right? Or it's got extra buttons so you can attach macros or shortcuts to it. For a gamer, that's a lot of advantages, right? Because you don't need to do like things in sequence. You don't need to do things like 3 or 4 different things before you get something done. It can all be sort of scripted and put inside what they call a macro, right? Like your Excel macro, same thing, and put it into a button that you can just activate from your mouse or on your keyboard, right? So this gives you an extra advantage. And way back, I think the first time I heard about Razer was, say, in high school. So I think about 10, 15 years ago, right? There were no other companies doing this. No other companies doing this. So
I was saying at 10, 15 years ago, not the other companies doing
I
this.
still remember it well.
Yeah, I know. Yes, we still can 想当年. Yeah. So haven't forget yet, right? Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So they were really one of the first that actually did this because no other mice company or keyboard company actually bothered to look into this space, right? They hopped on to the trend and they really invested quite heavily into their R&D, especially for hardware. They were one of the crazier ones. And I think that worked out well for them. So after that, after the gaming mice, the keyboards and all that, they started to go more into the platform side of things. So this is where the services angle comes up. Basically, it's just a game payment service, right? So imagine you're playing some kind of game and requires you to have prepaid cards, let's say for subscription to the game, or prepaid cards to buy some in-game items, right? So certain countries, they don't actually have a very sophisticated credit card system, right? Or even those playing like 16-year-old, 14-year-old playing those games, right? They cannot get access to a credit card also. So what do? They need to go to some convenience store, they go and buy the prepaid card, and then they have to redeem it, right? So this whole process is being done through Razer's network, through Razer's payments, I would say their platform lah. Yeah. So some games they are on Tencent, right, as a mini app. Call of Duty, Genshin Impact, that kind of stuff that is very common today. But even from way back, they're using the same mechanism to go and do this. Yeah. So that's their services arm. And as we talked about recently, there's also the fintech one, but now not so much. So maybe we don't have to talk so much about it lah.
Yeah, sorry to Min Liang, but yes, that's you guys gave up, so nothing much to talk about. I think when we're preparing this, they haven't given up yet. and then they give up.
Like 2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago. So yeah. Anyway, end of Razer fintech. Yes. What is their product line actually at this point in time? I know they started with the big mouse, right? Very, very big mouse and with all the hotkeys, like what you said, but at this moment in time, it feels like they are even beyond
many.
Yeah, they are beyond mouse, keyboard, laptops. It feels like they're going to a little bit of a kind of like a Xiaomi play. Like what Xiaomi did, right? Xiaomi at first started with the phone only, and then they started branching into like household products,
appliances,
all those other things. So,
right.
What are we seeing with Razer's product line?
Yeah, so I think it's evolved, right? Rather than just from hard gaming, the essentials is your keyboard and your mouse, right? They move on to say create headphones, the streaming camera, microphones, all the extra paraphernalia, right? But now and then they also just try something when they've built up a brand already, like a toaster. They've actually done this. Okay, of course it's discontinued, but there's just something a bit random that we have done now and then. Yeah. There's also Razer prepaid cards, right? So you just buy Razer's one rather than individual one. It will just work for the same games that you play. There's also a Neo car. The Neo is a EV company in China, right? They had some collaboration with Neo to actually produce this car lah. Yeah, basically it's a tie-up between them. Just it looks like a Razer mouse. The car looks like a Razer mouse. So it's quite cool. It's got green backing, it's got neon lights and all that. Yeah lah, but at the end of the day, it's whether you want to buy that car lah. Their focus primarily, their product line is really on games. Backpack, they've got keyboard replacement. Keyboard key replacements. Yeah, because if you play too hardcore, then after that it breaks or something, and then you have to go and replace it. Yeah,
but it's pretty interesting how a company can build all these different products around an idea of gaming, and they don't actually need to build the core products behind, whether is it from the GPU, the CPU, the main stuff that people are really using, right? So they're not super techy. Actually, a lot of their stuff, I would say the technology is very commoditized. It's very off the shelf kind of technology, but it's built together, in a way from whether it's from the molding or the user experience, it's targeted at the gamer. But actually, the core technology inside are not like revolutionary and all. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So actually, anyone else could have built it, but what they're really riding on is the brand. So a lot of people just go to say, Razer brand, the logo is green, it looks damn cool. I associate it with it as a gamer, right? And then here comes, say, like Logitech or some other competitor, right? Some Chinese brand and all that. And then they also try to build the same thing, but it's like blue in color. It's like, nah, I wouldn't want to buy that, right? But actually, you see more and more competitors coming up because there are no kinds of like hard patent intellectual property controls to prevent people from actually doing the same thing. It's a keyboard, right? It's a mouse. Yeah. It's not an iPhone. Yeah. And even iPhones, they have really more advanced ways of doing things such that competitors can't do the same thing. It's just a very niche play, right? And I think Razer made use of their timing as well as their brand to really capitalize on it. Yeah.
Yes, I think at the point in time when they were doing all these stuff, it was still quite a fringe idea. Like gaming wasn't that big, and esports wasn't that big yet. So they could capitalize on the whole market, right? When the market is not as big, sponsorships are cheaper, everything is lower. You can enter, you can dominate, and they have gone really, really far with doing all these kind of peripheral, I would call them low-tech products, but very well branded and very well done in the user interface. But yeah. So any other major processes you think we need to understand about this company before we dive deeper?
I think really much to do with the partnerships. So they cannot be all over the place, but they have to be where the gamers are. So you see a lot of live streaming competitions, you see a lot of maybe even the live event itself, you see Razer there at some point or another, right? This is becoming increasingly competitive as well.
Yes.
Even though it's like a major process for this kind of company. So you'd see other gaming companies, say like SteelSeries, right? They're also wherever Razer is. They are sponsoring all the different teams that's competing in any other game also to go and use this. But that's actually a major thing because ultimately their brand is what makes this company successful. Yeah.
Yes, definitely important. We're really in the situation where a lot of these competitors are also doing very decent products, and it's a whole same thing with how a lot of big consumer brands sponsor sports leagues, and
Right.
with a lot of esports leagues, it's also these kind of stuff. A lot of big consumer brands that they do decent products, but
Right.
they are not technically very unique, and they're just fighting for resonance, fighting for the brand, fighting for the position
Yeah.
in the whole market.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not say like later we can go a little bit into the modes
Yeah.
but not so much as you could see. But it's really their brand and they have this like very cultish kind of audience or customers. So anything else like the toaster, right? There's gonna be people who buy it, but they're not gonna have a completely new product line. They're gonna have
Yeah,
a new car. Some people are gonna buy it, but not all the way. Yeah.
No, maybe
It's
they
that
can
kind
add
of effect.
they can add a master key on the mouse where they press the thing, then the toaster start toasting. Right?
Oh wow.
Why? Well, then it's a full lifestyle. It's a full lifestyle suite kind of thing. Yeah,
Right.
maybe Razer can hire me. But
Mm.
anyway, yes.
Not
Anyway,
bad, not bad.
so when trying to understand Razer as a company, what are some metrics that you will look at?
I think definitely the number of gamers that they have in their platform matters, and what's the proportion of that in relation to all the gamers worldwide. So we know only the numbers say for the amount on their platform, which is 120 million users, and how many have grown since the last time. It's 68.2% year-on-year growth. So a lot of people picked
Wow.
up gaming, right? Especially
Pretty
during this
good.
COVID period. Yeah, so monthly active users especially, that picked up quite a bit. I mean, fintech, we're not talking about it anymore. But basically, your number of payments volume still matters because it's still
Yeah.
their services part of the business, but no longer for
For their
the
core.
e-wallet as well as
Yeah.
the Visa credit card. Yeah, but the number of payment volume still matters. So as long as people still stay within their system, they're still going to make money. They are people still use it as a platform. I mean, of course, there's others also, but others try to have their own kind of garden approach. Say like Garena, right? Garena has their own set of games. They also have their own set of payment platforms on that, and they don't actually release. You can only buy prepaid cards specifically for that game or that platform. Same thing which Razer is trying to do here as well. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Very, very important. But are you concerned about, okay, I know I'm a little bit jumping the gun, but are you concerned about the whole movement towards the mobile gaming wave? Like it feels like Razer's products are very much for the pro gamer and for essentially the very serious gamers, right? But like a lot of the games, a lot of new releases, some of the best stuff, the most profitable games are all going mobile. Right, so do you have any thoughts on this? I know they are trying to do a little bit of mobile stuff, but it still does not feel like it's very big in their repertoire.
Yeah, so this one not very quantitative, but it's also something that I say you should also track, which is a good point. So the kind of games that must be played on PC, right, as compared to say other kinds of platforms like a PlayStation or Xbox and things like that, and these are your more traditional games lah. So say like your League of Legends, right, your Counter-Strike, or I don't know how long ago was that? Team Fortress, World of Warcraft. All these kind of games really needs to be played on PC, right? And no other platform can actually do that. Call of Duty, Battlefield. As more people actually play these games, that's a great thing. But if there's considerably less, then yes, there's less need to actually have these kind of gaming products. That being said, it doesn't mean that all gamers will also use Razer, right? Or Razer, sorry, let me rephrase. Razer is not only meant for gaming, right? But it can also be used for work. Some people just like to macro things. Yeah, so I know of an accountant who macros some Excel macros to his Razer.
I've seen how some of the major accountants from major audit firms they work, right? They can talk to me while they're using the thing. You know, so they
Right.
can look at me and chit chat, but they're still doing their accounts and all. I was like, what the hell? You guys are really, like machines, right? So that's a whole different discussion altogether. But
Yeah, there's
actually
a saying, right?
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
there's a
ahead.
saying for the accountants or even for management consultants, right? They never actually use the keyboard. They never actually use the mouse. So everything they use is keyboard and shortcuts.
Yes, the shortcuts are crazy, But that being said, right, Razer is already quite big in a lot of the markets that they're in, right? At this point in time.
Yeah. So we look at the total number of gamers, right? It's 2 billion gamers last time, pre-pandemic. So now, at this current juncture, it's 3 billion. Right, it's 3 billion users. They've got 120 million users on their platform. So all these gamers, right, it constitutes so many across the different platforms, right? They're just like gamers. It's just one group.
Yeah,
so
very
we already
loose.
have to look at, it's very loose, yeah. So we have to look into, say, like PC gaming in specifically. And then from there, it's you want to split out into each of the games which people actually play. Yeah. So ultimately, they have to ride on their brand, right? But going into mobile would be something that they would want to go into. So the thing is, they don't have a mobile platform. They've tried, right, with their own phone, but I think that was discontinued as well. So really, your Android and iPhones still have and your Samsungs lah. Yeah, basically it's Android also.
Yeah.
There's another discussion altogether. Google's trying to go into the hardware later on with Pixel. But that's where the trend is going to go. And same thing with content. It doesn't mean that people just play mobile only and they don't play other platforms, right? So there's a lot of these
A lot
overlap.
of cross, yes. There's a lot of
Yeah.
intersectionality these days in development of games.
Right. So
Yeah,
where
but
does Razer stand in all of that? Whoa, this is also a question mark. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also want to point out that I don't think Razer is not trying to do anything in the mobile space. They are, they are doing a lot of the accessory stuff. But honestly, I do feel that if they manage to ride out into having their own like setup, right, like a Samsung or like a iOS, having actually their own ecosystem, that would make them an extremely exciting business instead of just building peripheral accessories, which is how they started in in the gaming space. So yeah. Okay. So let's take a look a little bit at their financials then. I mean, they are definitely very interesting as a company, very profitable. So yeah, what are the numbers?
Okay, so I think first and foremost, they also have the number one market share actually in Europe, China, and APAC. So in US, it's already 1.1 billion in total sales for gaming hardware. So as of now, they still are leading, right, for games, and they're number one in the US also for premium gaming laptops, right? So their revenue, we have the numbers on 2021, TTM versus 2020. They grew 48% year on year, right, to now 1.2 billion USD, right? And this is even after exiting their mobile handset business. So for several reasons lah, yeah. But basically they discontinued that, but they still made this much, right? Because there's a surge of gamers and a surge of the demand for their products. And revenue by segment, so basically they're the hardware segment and the services segment. So hardware has to do with their mouse, their accessories, their keyboards and all that. It grew 51.8% to 1.1 billion. Super
Nice.
high, right? This is like
Nice.
90+% already,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And services
excel.
very minimal, very minimal. So it grew 66.8%, but it only contributed 128 million, and that constitutes your total like 1.2 billion ish USD of revenue already. So these services is very small actually. What you should really focus on is just the hardware.
Yeah, but I think I know it's a little bit optimistic to say, but services have very high margins, right? So it's similar to the whole Apple kind of thing. You're an Apple user, but when you're in the ecosystem, all the services that they funnel you through, they actually make very decent margins. Much more than the hardware in itself. But of course, Apple is a different story. That they also make money from the hardware, like serious money from the hardware. So that's a whole different discussion. But yes, we never know. We never know what kind of services can come out of it. But just as of now, the observation is that it is a very small fraction of their overall revenue, but high margins.
But that would be interesting if Razer decides to go on a platform play. It definitely needs more reinvestment because with any platform, you need to go and acquire as many users as possible.
Yeah.
Anyone else also is wanting to set up their own platform. Lah. So
I know, right? Like, I don't know why they never try to compete with Steam before Google, Apple want to come into games. They were already very ahead of everyone. But we can always rate the management later. In our discussion. But I do think that they try a lot of things. Not all stuck, but it's also quite amicable that they managed to, end it lah in some ways, right? It's not so easy
Right.
to kill initiatives. So yeah,
Right.
what about their costs overall?
Ooh, okay. As with any hardware-focused company, I think the cost of revenue is something that you should look at. Right, it's negative. It's like it took up 943 million, so they made a lot like revenue from it, right? But they also lose a lot because of the cost of this production, right? But the cost remain around the same. The sales was a bit higher, so you can see that the margins contributed by that is actually higher as well. If you look at it from an OpEx operating expenses point of view, then it's 270 million, right, total across all their different segments. And then for margins, it actually improved by 22.3%. So this was an improvement from the hardware. And this quarter, they actually turned profitable. And this is GAAP, right? So this is pretty good. Ahead of expectations because of the drive in number of gamers lah. And they've also been trying to cut the costs, so they're making a lot of productivity improvements across the last 3 years on these hardware margins. So that's good. You're seeing that the cost of the revenue for the hardware segments remaining the same, if not lowering, across the years, but the revenue is increasing. So they're doing what they are saying that they are doing. Cash flow wise, so yes, profitable. They made 15.2 million this year. Yeah. And
But it's
last
the
year
first time
actually they
they've done
were losing
profitable, right?
17.7. Yeah, last year they were losing 17 million. This year they made 15 million.
Okay. That's pretty good. And I think interestingly they have no debt. Right? I think
Yes.
that's a very, very healthy situation. And they do have quite some cash in their bank. So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, 600 million. So let's see what they do with it. Right now, I actually before this I actually expected them to expand more in their fintech kind of angle, but now it's a little bit of no head no tail. They're still in majority hardware. Are they going to double down on hardware? If so, then what's the long term roadmap for it? Right, a bit questionable at this point.
Yes. And the hardware business is a hard place to be. But they have essentially built it up, right? So respect to that. But I would say, yeah, if they do not have a lot of core technology that are very unique to them, then yeah, they are essentially fighting in the commodity space. They're just playing the brand game,
Right.
right? Yeah. And any other things to add about financials?
Yeah, so something I want to just bring up, apart from all the rest of the stock geekouts, right, is actually the emphasis on the R&D also. Because this company, if let's say it's focused so much on the hardware, right, how else is it differentiating itself from others, right? So R&D actually reduced over the last 3 years that they are doing this cost-cutting exercise. I mean, yes, it constitutes some portion where you're making the hardware operations leaner and all that, but now that you're like Razer is no longer going into their platform side of business, they're not going into payments either, but they're focusing on hardware, assuming that's the case. But they didn't R&D too much, right? Are they actually losing ground compared to their competitors? I would actually think so, because if you look at Steel Series or you look at other competitors like even Logitech, right? They're coming out with quite innovative designs, and slowly but surely they're actually catching up. Yeah, so I actually like to see this R&D expense if remain the same or increasing actually. Yeah.
Yeah, but they definitely need a cash cow if they want to spend more on this kind of stuff. But I think you rightfully point out because it's a commoditized situation, or it's an increasingly commoditized space that they're playing with. For everybody that don't understand commoditized, just means that it's very easy for everyone else to produce. Like it becomes a commodity, right? So yeah, it's a design play and all that jazz. There's not a lot of patents inside. It's definitely a bit challenging.
Like we're seeing a lot of accessories coming out. So headphone here, left and right, like extra dongle, sunglasses, right, toaster come out, and then now and then maybe something interesting like it's like a Android console right? It's like a little gaming console that you can connect your Android to have an edge against the other gamers who's playing mobile. So rather than tap 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 tap, right, you have a control. So that's pretty innovative, right? But we're not seeing much contributions from that, and not much growth from that either. So where is the focus, right? This is the main question for Razer lah at this point.
Interesting. I think Xiaomi went through quite a period also. Similar, but Xiaomi is a similar situation, very commoditized space that they are in, and then they go into a lot of other like low-hanging lifestyle products, trying to be smart and all. And yeah, it's also a question mark what's gonna happen there. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the management now. Okay. We should. Let's talk a little bit about the management.
Sure. So the CEO is Tan Min Liang. He was there since 2006. I think he was one of the founders as well. He was previously the creative director from the Razer itself. But something interesting, he's also part of the remuneration committee. So this is pretty interesting, right? The CEO is also part of that. And he's got a background in law. Usually these two roles are actually separate in most other companies. But I mean, if the board is okay with it, or he has some say in the board or so, then you can't really fight. Yeah. So in other words, like this is his company. Right?
He's a founder,
So,
yes. That's something important. He's not just the CEO.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, and also the remuneration committee. So if he's part of that, he can just justify why he's being paid a certain amount. Even though say maybe like they put the OKR or the KPI of the board, for the leadership to be raising the stock price as much as possible or to increase earnings and all that, right? It won't matter, right? So this you invite more questions on why this is the case, and is he really making decisions for the best of the company, or is it for the best for himself? So that's something that's quite interesting. And then COO is actually Keng Joo Kor. He was there since 2012. Previously, he was at HP in a tech manufacturing operations for 26 years, so pretty long. He was also the CEO of Media Ring. So they were doing mobile voice over IP, voice data computing services. Back then, this was in like 2002 to about 2009. This was still a big thing when this segment of IT, right, was not really done very well, right? So he was the CEO, and then 2005 to 2011 he sat on the board of SATS, so SATS. So that's the airlines kind of yeah.
Big ops guy.
And then we have the CFO. His name is Tan Chong Neng. Previously, he was a group CFO of TriStar Group. And then the global sales and marketing, he's Bob O'Wheeler. He's there since this year, January, right? But previously, he was in Kodak's consumer business in Europe, Africa, and Middle East, and also the sales and marketing at HP. Okay, so we find a commonality. There's some HP roots there for Razer. And then he also did business development and music licensing at Music Match. Do you remember Music Match?
No, I've never used Music Match.
It's like the period of like Kazaa kind of thing, and then there was also Music Match, which was trying to become like a Spotify. So rather than downloading things illegally, right, you would use Music Match. No?
No, never been in that era. But yes.
Right. Well, it made me sound old, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
No.
He was doing this previously. And then he was acquired by Yahoo, so quite interesting.
Okay. So, how would you rate the management? It looks like they have a decent strength in operations, which I expect them to have because it is hardware, very long supply chain kind of business. But how would you rate the management overall?
Between an A, B, and a C. So
I don't think we really need a grade but it's just more like what do you think are stuff that we should be aware of when looking at this as a company, as a management of the company, and based on the previous results and all that, how would you rate them?
Yeah, I think going back to Razer being a hardware company, but it's a commodity kind of company, it's just churning out different kinds of products at this point and then marketing it as much as possible. Right. For this kind of operations, I think the management is suitable, right? But they are not doing anything revolutionary, not anymore, right? Maybe back in 15 years ago, they were doing things that are revolutionary, and the team looked different then. But now they haven't actually progressed past that. They are doing more of the marketing side of things, right? It's really like next year it can be a refrigerator by Razer, right? And then a toaster, it can be another like electric vehicle car tie-up and all that. It doesn't matter. They just need to get the manufacturing right. And the team seems structured that way, right? It doesn't mean that they are going to bring in like big guns who is going to lead something very innovative on the technology side of things. There's no innovation. Yeah, let's say design a totally different mouse or a keyboard plus mouse, right, which will revolutionize the way you work or the way that you game. Yeah, there are several designs like that, but those kind of things existed already, and actually not many people use them, right? So the product didn't really also take off, right? So who's really driving the company is unsure thing. Like who's really like chonging in the different areas? There are people, right? But is there a common direction? I think this is a question mark. Yeah.
I also think it's important to note that they are still a very young listed company so far. And it's very different from running a private company and running a listed company, right? So you don't get so much scrutiny, you don't get so much pressure. People be like, oh, what you plan to do, what you plan to do, right? So I think there's also that element of things. But as retail investors, we should be very critical about what is the business plan, what is the future. If I'm not seeing anything, then what is going to happen, right? And I think those things are very, very real stuff.
Yeah. Because you have, although they have cash in the bank, right, it doesn't mean that they can just keep experimenting over and over, right? This is also like testing like shareholders' patience, like which is the direction that you want, right? They already established company, they have global operations and all that. But at the end of the day, where do they want to focus their time and attention on? Yes, maybe their manufacturing, their production process for hardware is really, really good, but what is the overall strategy? Where is the company headed to in the next 5 or 10 years? That's something that I don't actually see inside the transcripts. I don't actually see inside their reports as well. It's more of like very short-term kind of adjustments. Like, hey guys, we have a toaster. And then like we're going to do fintech along the way. And then this will be a new kind of platform that we're going to be focusing on for the next 2 or 3 years. And then suddenly cut, right? Why? There's no explanation. So I'm kind of looking forward to why in the following earnings report, or at least make some announcement on why, not just suddenly say that it's cut.
Yeah. Next season we'll have Razer waffle iron, right? So that all you gamers don't need to work as hard, right, for food. But anyway, Min Liang is in Singapore. He's a Singaporean, so I don't think it's that difficult to get him. So shout out if you are listening to this. Come onto the show. I want you to share with us your thoughts, your plans, your struggles, because although we are down here being very critical about the business, being very critical about the future plans, but as an entrepreneur, I know it's difficult, But yeah, so maybe me as an entrepreneur, I'll be like, I'm vibing with you, but as an investor, nope. I'm still very critical about it.
Yeah, all these questions are popping up. I don't have a position, but researching into this, I will have more questions. Like this could be answered somewhere, and then this will make things a lot more clearer whether to invest in the company or not.
Of course. And I think there was a lot of missed opportunities, having a dominant position at a point in time, all the way to like 10 years from then to now. There were a lot of things that could be done, right? Whether is it challenging Steam or whether is it having their own like mobile platform, and even the whole like fintech and all that. They always feel like they're a little bit late to the game. I always feel like they try to do it, but it's like always a little bit late, a bit late. So other people are already doing it, and then they try to come in and fight, but they don't have enough of a war chest to fight. Because they don't have that very high margin, cash flow churning juggernaut, in their ecosystem, for them to really play this kind of like late game essentially.
Because after a while, like you start to think like actually they did sink some resources into it actually. The whole notion of having Razer Pay, even as a point of sale or some way to go and complement the Visa or MasterCard kind of like tap to pay mechanism, right? That was actually significant investment. So if they continue to do it, right, they could be somewhere, but I'm not sure whether there's underlying some operational issue or some licensing issue and all that. Those could be further explained, of course. Yeah.
May or may not, I think executionally, honestly, while I was living in Singapore for this one over year, right, it was the height of the whole Razer Pay thing that they're trying to do, right? I think the execution is not good. So the execution was very wonky, they're trying to give out free masks, the vending machine. Those are stupid things, People are throwing money. Google is throwing money at you to use a Google Pay. Even a lot of the other smaller guys, even Auto, they were doing POS systems. They were going online. And a lot of those other guys, they were doing a lot better from an executional standpoint, which is why I'm saying that they feel like they're always slightly late to the game. It's like they're already dominant players, or they're already people that are executing very well. Does not mean that if someone is executing well, you cannot compete. It just means that you need a thicker war chest to compete, right? And you need to be faster. You need to be a little bit more unique in your execution. So yeah, it's just as of now, it just feels like it is not as interesting. But so would you think that the company has any modes that we should recognize?
Have. I think they have a very strong brand. So they're still the go-to brand for gaming. I mean, number one market share in a few countries already, right? There's several reasons for that, right? So people still go to it, right, as the first thing that they want to try. Razer, does it support my use case or not? Right? And then I'll just compare the rest of competitors. And they find that, okay, the rest of competitors are kind of there, but not there yet. I'll just get Razer. Yeah. So their go-to brand for the gaming, and there's a very strong cult behind Razer. Right, there's a reason why also any product that they launch, right, there's going to be some people that buy. Doesn't matter whether they discontinue down the road, right, but people will at least try, right? So they belong to a certain kind of community. They really resonate with the brand, and that's something that not a lot of companies can actually do. So this is what Razer has going for them. And then they were able to sell masks with the Razer logo, right? I mean, it's aesthetic, right? Other than it's just providing you protection, right? It gives you the Razer logo on your face. It's like, wow, okay. People are still willing to buy that for, I think it's $20, $30. Yeah, for a pack. It's quite expensive, but people will still do it. Okay, so I think they are able to pull off this kind of effect, which Apple also has. There's a very strong cult behind it. I wouldn't go to the level of saying they have some kind of walled garden, right? But the cultish kind of mindset, you can do a lot of things with that. And that's how you can actually bring your marketing of new products, right, into life, by really riding on that. The second thing I think is their integrated gaming platform. So they have a bunch of games really which they are closely associated to, whether they're sponsored it a lot or they partner with other people who have. Inside their own platform, they can actually do something about it. It's still a very small percentage of their revenue, but at least they have it now, right? And it's entrenched. People are still using it to make the payments, to go and do prepaid stuff and all that. I was going to expand on Razer Go, Razer Pay, the whole Razer fintech around this. Actually, there's a whole strategy and ecosystem for this. But it's a question mark. Yeah, at this point. Yeah, I think they could have done a lot if they continued. So I'd like to know the reason why they actually discontinued, and what's the next plans.
Because once they discontinue this external ecosystem, then the whole fintech thing just stays within a gaming ecosystem once again. Right? Because,
Yes.
Yeah, because I know what you're saying. Because if they had the Razer payment wallet or Razer card, then in-game spending can connect with offline spending, and then it becomes a flywheel, right? Like all the gamers can go out and buy, and then they will also collect points. They get rewarded back in the in-house, the in-app stores, and then there's a cycle that can be very sexy as a business for them. It could have been a very big thing.
Right. There's a whole angle for their marketing. It's like the youth millennial bank, or even like the gamers bank, right? That's really cool. So if you had a Razer card or this kind of Razer Visa card, right, everyone knew that you were a gamer, and you were associated with certain perks, right, which only Razer can give. Hey, I will get that, yeah, right? But now, if let's say there isn't these kind of things, right, why would people actually go it? It's missing one part of that ecosystem already. Yeah. So what's going to replace it, or is it totally just going to be left hanging? Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I do think that they should try again. I'm not sure how. I'm not sure like if they are actually gonna do it. But yeah, let's see how it goes. Because I do think that if you can bring the gamer out of the game, and stay with them throughout, then you have that cult-like following to then continue to reap the upside effect, right? But yeah, as of now, no real plans. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other growth strategies that you think they can ride on? Because I do think that they are riding on a very good tailwind, right? Whether is it the rise of gaming, remote working and all those kind of stuff. So I'm not discounting all of that. I mean, I'm using a Razer webcam. Let's be real, right? So I think they are pushing out some pretty good products. But yeah, I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on future growth?
Okay, so esports is still growing. The pandemic is an additional boon to that because everyone's staying from home. But it's temporary, right? Or we like to think it's temporary lah. So, okay, so moving forward, we want to see, I think, more innovation, right? They're trying with their mobile gaming already. They have different accessories, things like the gaming console attached to your Android device or your iPhone device and all that. But more than that, right? So something more long term rather than just a passing trend would be say AR VR. Are they doing any R&D in that direction? Right? Are they also going to different kinds of platforms? So wherever the game is, Razer is there. It's not just PC anymore. So I'm talking about PlayStation, your Xbox. Are they also giving some kinds of accessories at least? Then they can address that, or it's not part of their plan altogether. Yeah. Again, a big part of their growth I thought was going to come from their their bank side of things. There's really a lot of opportunities. Is it because of the operational costs? It won't make sense, right, if they don't get a license, or it won't make sense because there's certain things which not part of the play, then they discontinue for now. Yeah. But ultimately, if hardware is left, then I think where their opportunities are going to be at is wherever the games are. Yeah.
Okay, fair. Yeah. So I think broadly speaking, it's a decently executed company. In closing, do you want to talk us through some of the risk factors or competition that you think we should be aware of when evaluating and trying to understand this company?
Yeah, so the big one is really the shift to mobile or other platforms. So not necessarily is that everyone will still be in the cult of Razer, right? Maybe at a certain age they grow up and then they find like, okay, I need something more corporate. I go for Logitech, yeah, or like this brand.
And that's the power
yeah.
of branding, but also the problem with branding, right? If your brand
Yeah.
too closely associated with a particular thing, I'm honestly not sure if business people will bring a Razer laptop to business meetings.
Yes, that kind of
Right.
thing.
So that is a two side things lah. Yeah.
You gotta have some kind of like hidden basement or hidden room for gaming lor. And then like all your Razer stuff is there. It's your other persona, right? And then outside they are like very like professional, very corporate, but behind the scenes like, oh, everything's Razer, that kind of thing. So these are really consumer trends, and with consumer trends there's always a risk that it changes. Right? Overnight it could be something else. For example, people might be say they don't like the color green anymore. Oh wow, jialat. Yeah. This is like totally extreme lah. Okay. But in the context, the very serious one is at least it shifts to other platforms. Or the consumer taste is shifted also. Yeah. Like people don't want to play PC games anymore. People want to play just their Android or iPhones. Right? And they may not want the accessories also. So how? Then there goes your business model, right? You need to come up with other ways to make that work. And how that is going to come about is new products, new services. You have to innovate. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So overall, I think Razer is still at it's relatively simple business model. Good products, well branded, churn to their community, and just keep growing. But yeah, I'm excited to see if there are any interesting growth opportunities and to see whether the company can continue to grow. And I think you rightfully point out about R&D, right? We don't want any company that is playing in the very high tech space, or specifically in tech, where the life cycle of products and life cycle of services is relatively short and very competitive. You really want to be very cautious about investments in R&D. Okay, cool. Any last words to add before we end off?
I think they also have pretty good control of their supply chain. So one of the remarks made by the CEO this quarter was that actually they have quite a bit of diversified suppliers. So even though there were supply chain constraints, right, they actually still kept the costs constant or low. So you can see that expanding with their margins, right? Yeah. So this discipline is really good. I think they have it pat down, especially for the supply chain control. It's really just the innovation part. What's next, right? So maybe we'll find out in the following quarter. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Min Liang, come on the show. Let's talk about what's next. Okay, see you guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
So I hope you learned something useful today and definitely recognize that investing is a personal decision. We're not here to give you any recommendations, but we're always happy to geek out with you on interesting companies and trends for the future, right? So this series has a lot more depth and terms. So if you have any questions for us, do join our community Telegram group or DM us on our socials. Link is in the description below. If you love us and will help us grow, definitely share the podcast with your friends and on your socials. And to stay tuned with what is happening in the markets and in the TFC network, do sign up for our weekly newsletter at thefinancialcoconut.com. With that, I hope you have a great day ahead and you improve to become a confident, insightful, and disciplined investor, ultimately creating the life you love while managing your finances well. Also, yes, give us 5-star rating on your favorite podcast channel. Bye.